Today I'm going to read a short extract from The Angel Downstairs, which is my latest book, published in April, and the third of the Dechansay Bright Mysteries. This is the prologue. Paris, December 1991. A dimming pink light filtered through the studio windows. It caressed the brushes, paints and mediums cluttering the tables, glinted sleepily off a glass jar and a palette knife, and gave a rosy hue to a primed white canvas drying against the wall. Oblivious to the charm of the crepuscular light, Eric stepped back from the easel where he was working and sighed heavily, eyeing up his progress with a critical eye. It wasn't going well, and he hated these short winter days. Before long he'd have to put the lights on, and it wouldn't be the same. Whatever the manufacturers might claim, no light bulb quite replicated natural light. Not to his eyes, anyway. Especially when he couldn't figure out what was wrong with the damn painting. He tossed his brush on the table nearby in irritation, stretched his shoulders back, and ran his hands through his thinning hair as he eyed up his canvas resentfully. As if his employer's restive movement had given him permission to talk, Mark, the senior of Eric's two studio assistants, looked across and cleared his throat. "Angelique has been a long time," he remarked. Angelique was the junior studio assistant. She had been sent out to get brioche, preferably chocolate. When work wasn't going well, Eric often had a sudden craving for a chocolate brioche. Then, when he got engrossed again, he promptly forgot about it. He said now, dragging his eyes away from the canvas. Mark was English, but spoke French pretty fluently. Even so, his accent sometimes made him hard to understand. Eric, whose English was very good, often thought he'd follow him better if he spoke in his native tongue. "Angelique," repeated Mark. "She's been gone ages. How long does it take to find a brioche in Paris?" Eric glanced at the big clock on the wall, pointlessly, because, immersed in his work, he had no idea what time it had been when the girl left. "It's probably the Christmas crowds," he offered, and shrugged. "It's getting crazy out there now." As if to emphasise the point, the sound of a police siren wailed in at them through the open window as the car tried to negotiate its way through the traffic on the boulevard de Port-Royal, a couple of blocks away. Eric frowned, glared accusingly at the window, then turned his attention back to the painting. Neither of them spoke again till the phone rang some 20 minutes later. "It's for you," said Mark, handing Eric the handset with a strange look. "It's the police." "The police? For me?" Angelique's body was stretched out at the bottom of a short run of steps which ran down to a recently abandoned basement restaurant at the end of a nearby street. Apparently a couple of Eric's business cards had been found on her, but nothing that could identify her, so the police had rung Eric in an effort to establish who she was. She had been covered with a blanket, but the police officer in charge told his second-in-command to pull the top down so Eric could see her face. "You know this woman?" demanded the officer. Eric couldn't speak, both chilled and magnetised by what he saw. The girl's face was heavily bruised on one side, which only accentuated the extreme pallor of her skin. She looked like a waxwork. Her sweatshirt, marked in places with paint and pastel, was now soaked in blood, as was her jacket. He cleared his throat and swallowed. "She's my studio assistant, Angelique Pommier." He paused and swallowed again. He felt slightly sick. She'd just popped out to do some shopping. Sorry, I'm shocked. What happened to her?" The police officer raised his eyebrows, as though the answer was self-evident. "She's been mugged. Maybe she tried to fight back. She's been stabbed. It was a senseless and savage attack. There's no purse on her, nothing. Just your cards in her pocket." "My cards," muttered Eric, his eyes still glued on the body as the junior officer replaced the blanket. Yes, I see. My cards." He pulled his gaze away and looked round, wild-eyed. "But all this for a few francs?" He spread his arms in disbelief. "She can't have had anything much to steal. I can't understand why—" "So she works for you?" The officer picked up the plastic bag which now held Eric's business cards and read one of them again through it. "Eric Dechansay. You're an artist, I see. Did she live with you?" As if every artist slept with the girls he worked with, thought Eric. That's what everyone thought, wasn't it? Not that he never had, obviously, but Angelique had been little more than a child. He glanced back down at the shrouded shape. Look at her, such a slight thing. He felt another wave of sickness. "Monsieur," prompted the officer, "she lived with you?" Eric forced himself to concentrate. No, she had a flat which she shared with another girl." "I see. Do you have the address? Is there a relative we could contact?" He was direct and businesslike, professional. Eric tried to pull himself together. "I've got her address back at the studio. I think her parents live somewhere near Fontainebleau. Her flatmate might know." "If you'd like to go back to your studio, then," the officer glanced at the business card, "we'll come and see you shortly, see where she worked, find out more about her." "And you too," his tone implied. Eric nodded and moved away, ducking under the yellow and black police tape, escaping. Was he being implicated in some way with this dreadful event? The police always made him nervous. A crowd had gathered to gawp ghoulishly at the covered body and the comings and goings of the police and the forensic investigators. As Eric picked his way through the press of bodies, several pairs of eyes followed him with undisguised curiosity. It wasn't until he was free of them and able to turn for home that he saw the man standing on the corner, motionless, looking his way, looking directly at him. Their eyes met and Eric felt his heart skip a beat. There was something horribly familiar about the man, especially those black eyes, boring into him. Eric remembered those eyes. It was like seeing a ghost. Bad memories playing tricks on him. Eric turned his head resolutely away and walked briskly back to the studio. At the time, he was too disturbed to see any connection between the man and Angelique's death. That would come later.